How y'all doing tonight? What's going on? Today is another Wednesday evening, transitioning to the new day, and another day to go over biblical history. If y'all have been paying attention, we've been kind of going in a chronological order from the things we've been doing as far as history-wise. The last previous month, we went over the kings of the northern and the southern kingdom of Israel, and prominent figures within those kingdoms. And now today's lesson, we are going into an important event that a lot of your Christian churches, Catholic churches, Pentecostals, just churches with the majority of so-called blacks and so-called Latinos don't cover as far as, context-wise. They might pull scripture here and there, to use for their prosperity message. But this is a history that's very important that's not talked about in your schools or your churches, and it's surmised as the Fall of Samaria. So, without further ado, we can get into that. And let me just preface a little. So, in some of our previous history lessons, you may have understood that Solomon, the son of David, King David, and now King Solomon, he sinned a sin to where Israel as a whole, all 12 tribes, became split and became two separate nations, a southern end and a northern end, comprising of 10 tribes separated from two tribes in the south, what is known as in the scriptures as the Jews, who we call today the southern kingdom, and Israel, or Ephraim, who is the northern kingdom. The capital of the northern kingdom, or Israel, is actually Samaria. So that's why this is called the Fall of Samaria. The capital is representative of the nation of as a whole. So that actually is Samaria, and that's encompassing the whole northern kingdom. So let's get some scriptures right here real quick. Let's get to the book of 2 Kings, chapter 15, and you can start with verse 23.
It's the book of 2 Kings, chapter 15, and verse 23. In the 50th year of Azariah, king of Judah, Pekahiah, the son of Manaam, began to reign over Israel and Samaria, and reigned 2 years.
Continue.
And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. He departed not from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin, but Pekah, the son of Remaliah, a captain of his, conspired against him and smote him in Samaria in the palace of the king's house, where Argob and Arieh, and with him 50 men of the Gileadites. And he killed them and reigned in his room.
So we see this is a ongoing process that happens within Israel, the northern kingdom. We see that you have kings that are established for short periods of times, and then more often than not, and if not actually all times than not, the military captain ends up killing the established king, which then transfers the power from one family lineage to a whole nother family lineage. So one of the main differences between the northern kingdom, or Israel, from the Jews in the southern kingdom is that there was no consistent, family line that you could trace from. The southern kingdom, it was David all the way leading to, Christ and all the kings that followed after him. You don't see such a linear family line dealing with the nation of Israel or the northern kingdom. It's boop, 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 boop. It keeps shifting in that sense. So that's the same case that we see here with Pekah, the son of Remaliah, Pekahiah's captain of his guard. So he puts him out. And just tidbits of knowledge, Pekah, the now former or new king, his name actually means open in Israel. in excuse me, in Hebrew, so we can continue. Continue verse 27 down.
Verse 27 or 26?
27.
Verse 27. In the 52nd year, Azariah, king of Judah, Pekahiah, the son of Ramaliah, began to reign over Israel and Samaria and reigned 20 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. He departed not from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. In the days of Pekah, king of Israel, came Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, and took Ijon and Abel Beth Maacah and Janoah and Kadesh and Hazor and Gilead and Galilee, all the land of Naphtali, and carried them captive to Assyria.
So this is the start of the beginning of the end of the northern kingdom of Israel, and you can even not necessarily argue, but it even began earlier in the history too, in the time of Jehu. But this is actually the beginning of the removal of Israel from the northern kingdom, dealing with the reign of Pekah. And we see that it's the Assyrians. So prior to the Assyrians are, let's just say, in the background of world history. The Assyrian Empire has been growing since the time of the split of the northern and the southern kingdom, since the split of Israel. The Assyrian Empire had been gaining momentum and power, but they weren't an issue yet to Israel at this time. And specifically dealing with the northern kingdom, the main issue or nation that was against Israel, the northern kingdom, was actually the Syrians. You read that quite some time in the history and battles with Israel, with King Ahab and a couple others. Their main nation was Syria. But over the process and period of time, Syria gains enough power and conquest and territory to where eventually they're actually taking over Syria. So Syria is not necessarily an issue with Israel, the northern kingdom, in this time that's coming to pass. So let's see briefly, real quick, the beginning of this fall, we had a list of cities that were taken away. So if we can actually get to the computer PowerPoint real quick, if you could switch over to us, we could take a look. So we read that in verse 29, the main cities that were taken were of Ijon, Abel, Beth Maacah, Janoah, Kadesh, Hazor, Gilead, Galilee, and the land of Naphtali. So if we want to look at this map right here, all of this makes sense, so we can see where Assyria was coming in. So Assyria was coming in from this north and we can see Naphtali is right here, right at the very top of, Israel or the northern kingdom. And we see some of those same main cities that were taken over listed in that verse, Hazor and Kadesh. Right here's Hazor and Naphtali, and here's Kadesh and Naphtali. So, and then it even mentions too, just all of Naphtali was the first to go in the toppling over of Samaria. So Naphtali got it, taken away and put in for them. And we also see, some of the other cities and towns that were taken away too, that more than likely were in Naphtali or more so north, dealing with, the Syrian territory. So just briefly too, we can get some of the names. Ijon, that city actually means a ruin. Abel Beth Maacah, that means meadow of the house of oppression. So all these names of these cities are increasingly sounding relevant. Janoah means he rests. Kadesh, one of the main cities in Naphtali, means sacred. We have a brand in in our congregation with a brother named Kodash 7. So that's the same name that is coming from Kodash or Kadesh. It means sacred or holy. And the last city mentioned here is Hazor, which means enclosed. So this is the beginning of, again, the destruction, complete destruction of the northern kingdom. So one more thing I want to get mentioned too, in a future sense, we can get this later, but Tobit. Tobit is a prime example of actually being from Naphtali. So it's understood that Tobit, in his lineage, he was one of the first ones in his narrative that was removed from the land, up to Nineveh, which is not on this map, but a lot farther away. So the book of Tobit is the aftermath of this particular event when Assyria came and removed Israel, well, some of Israel at this point, from its homeland. So we can take off the PowerPoint. You can come back to me. All right, now let's continue down. Verse 30, we can read on verse 30.
Verse 30. And Hoshea the son of Elah made a conspiracy against Pekah the son of Remaliah, and smote him, and slew him, and reigned in his stead in the 20th year of Jotham the son of Uzziah.
Yeah, Uzziah. So,
Uzziah.
And Hosea now, in a similar fashion, after Pekah's reign for, I believe, it said 20 years. Yeah, 20 years. And now Hosea is the one to take him out. And Hosea is going to be the last king in his period of reign that's going to be king over this northern kingdom of Israel, as we're referred to in the prophecies in the scriptures. So let's actually get let's jump down to verse 37. We get some parallel world history too. Jump down to verse 37.
Verse 37. In those days the Lord began to send against Judah Rezin the king of Syria, and Pekah the son of Remaliah. And Jotham slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David, his father. And
That's good. Okay, so briefly before Hoshea became into power in the northern kingdom, the Most High actually had sent the Syrians, who were a normal enemy against the northern kingdom, against the southern kingdom, as well as the northern kingdom. So this is actually happening in the time of Pekah, that the southern kingdom was being pummeled by Israel and the Syrians. Not the Assyrians, but Syria, that kingdom. We can continue on chapter 16 and read down.
In the 17th year of Pekah the son of Remaliah, Ahaz, the son of Jotham, king of Judah, began to reign. 20 years old was Ahaz when he began to reign, and reigned 16 years in Jerusalem, and did not that which was right in the sight of the Lord his power, like David his father.
So in this example, with the southern kingdom, we see that Ahaz was actually a bad king. He was one of the bad ones. Continue.
But he walked in the way of the kings of Israel, yea, and made his son to pass through the fire, according to the abominations of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out from before the children of Israel. And he sacrificed and burnt incense in the high places, and on the hills, and under every green tree. Then Rezin, king of Syria, and Pekah, son of Remaliah, king of Israel, came up to Jerusalem to war. And they besieged Ahaz, but could not overcome him.
So this is just some history as far as even why the northern kingdom of Israel is going to get completely removed from its land entitlement that the Most High sent them. We see that Israel is, for the second or I believe third time in this rivalry between the north and the south, coming against Judah or Ahaz this time with the Syrians. So now they have a covenant, and they're coming against the southern kingdom. And we'll touch on just what Ahaz's reactions were briefly, but let's get Isaiah chapter 7, verses 1 through 2. And something you should know about Isaiah, Isaiah prophesied his prophecies from around 740 BC to 710 BC. So his prophecies were before the fall of Samaria and after. And an important date you guys do need to know, which I wish I gave you at the beginning, 722 BC is the understood year of the fall of the northern kingdom of Israel. So of Ephraim. So that's an important date and number to remember. So Isaiah, again, dealing with his prophecies was before this and a little bit after this too. So Isaiah chapter 7, verse 1 through 2.
And it came to pass in the days of Ahaz, the son of Jotham, the son of Uzziah, king of Judah, that Rezin, the king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, went up toward Jerusalem to war against it.
So we see the parallels between, 2 Kings and what's written in Isaiah, because Isaiah was sent to prophesy to the southern kingdom primarily. But obviously we know that, as world history goes, things are still happening around in the world, within Israel, within the Judea, and within the Fertile Crescent, the Middle East. Continue those two verses.
But could not prevail against it. And it was told the house of David, saying, Syria is confederate with Ephraim, and his heart was moved in the heart of his people, as the trees of the wood are moved with the wind.
So Ahaz is kind of getting shook right now because they've been having issues with their brothers in the northern kingdom, but now the northern kingdom is bringing Syria against them. So Ahaz is kind of like, whoa. Continue.
Verse 3, Then said the Lord unto Isaiah, Go forth now to meet Ahaz, thou and Sharjash, Shearajash, thy son, at the end of the conduit of the upper pool in the highway of the fuller's field. And say unto him, Take heed and be quiet, fear not, neither be faint-hearted, for the two tails of these smoking firebrands, for the fierce anger of risen with Syria, and of the son of Remaliah. Because Syria, Ephraim, and the son of Remaliah have taken evil counsel against thee, saying, Let us go up against Judah, and vex it, and let us make a breach therein for us, and set a king in the midst of it, even the son of Tabial. Thus saith the Lord God, It shall not stand, neither shall it come to pass. For the head of Syria is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is risen. And within 65 years shall Ephraim be broken, that is, be not a people.
So check this out. So we're getting some more prophecy understanding. So at this point in time, Isaiah is told to prophesy in 65 years, Israel's not going to be nothing. So let's do a little bit of this math. 65 years. 1 score is 20 years. So if 3 scores out of 20, that's 2, 4, 6, 20, 40, 60, and 5. That's 65 years from that point in time until the northern kingdom will be completely sacked. So since 722 is the time that we know that, let's add to 722 65 years. Let me get that on a calculator. Matter of fact, I don't need a calculator because, bam, 6 and 2 is 80, and then 2 and 5 is 7. So this is at 787 BC when this prophecy and this time period is happening where Ahaz is being attacked by Israel and Syria. 787 BC. But the Most High is saying, look, in 65 more years from this, 722 BC, Israel's not even going to be a people. So don't worry about it. Was that all of verse 1 and 2?
That was all of verse 8.
Oh, you read? Okay, good. You read down to 5 and 8.
Con.
Okay, cool. I was going to tell you to get there, but okay, we'll figure that. So good. That's all I want to hear. So, yeah, we're going to be jumping back and forth. So Isaiah had one of the first prophetic accounts against the fall of Samaria. Well, actually, not one of the first, but he was up in there. But let's continue on with in 2 Kings. So get back to 2 Kings, and we can start at verse 10. Actually, no, start at verse 6.
Verse 6,
Con.
chapter 16, Con. 2 Kings chapter 16, verse 6. At the time, Rezin, king of Syria, recovered Elath to Syria and drave the Jews from Elath, and the Syrians came to Elath and dwelt there unto this day. So Ahaz sent messengers to Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, saying, I am thy servant and thy son. Come up and save me out of the hand of the king of Syria, and out of the hand of the king of Israel, which rise up against me.
So, after a little bit of period of time, even though Isaiah instructed King Ahaz not to worry about it, to worry about Israel or the Syrians, we see that Ahaz, and we read in his premise that he was still a little wicked. So it was obvious for him to have called upon what we read about right now, the kings of Assyria. He actually enlisted the help of the kings of Assyria to fend off against Syria and Israel. And we see that in this process of time that Syria had actually removed some of the Jews into their land. So the whole captivity is happening, in various bits and pieces, both on the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. So the scattering of Israel, both the Jews and Ephraim, is very real and has been consistently been chipping away. But we're seeing now that King Ahaz of Judah has called upon the Assyrians for help against Israel. So jump down to verse 9.
Verse 9, and the king of Assyria hearkened unto him. For the king of Assyria went up against Damascus and took it, and carried the people of it captive to Kir, and slew Rezin.
So bam, that's the first aspect of what I mentioned earlier. The Assyrians take over Syria. So their empire is growing. First with Syria, and then soon to be Israel. Let's jump down to let's get to chapter 17, because the rest of this is pretty much explaining that King Ahaz of Judah, in order to get the help of the Assyrians, he had to pay him off. And Ahaz actually paid the Assyrians off with the lavers and the precious things of the temple of the Most High. So again, Ahaz was not your best example of king in Judah to look up to. So that's one of the things that he did. But let's get to chapter 17.
2 Kings chapter 17, verse 1. In the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, began Hoshea the son of Elah to reign in Samaria over Israel 9 years.
So we're back with Hoshea. Hoshea of the northern kingdom of Israel is back on the scene. Continue.
And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, but not as the kings of Israel that were before him. Against him came up Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, and Hoshea became his servant and gave him presents.
So without giving too much of the details of what Hoshea's kingship was like, we understand that, yeah, he was still wicked, especially in comparison to the southern kingdom of Israel, but not as wicked as, who we say, Jeroboam and, some of his forefathers, but still wicked enough, because the Most High doesn't need that much to be angry with you. So in his king reign of wickedness, a new king of Assyria is now risen up at this point in time, not Tiglath-Pileser anymore, whose name I can't remember right now, but maybe we'll get it later. But now it's actually Shalmaneser. And Shalmaneser's name means, he who worships the fire. So, just dealing with these, these pagans and these heathen that were coming up against Israel. So the Most High sends Shalmaneser of Assyria against Hosea's reign, and Hosea, he decides that, in order to be cool with him, I'm gonna become his servant. You know, I'm going to become a vassal servant. I'm going to work with him. So continue on.
And the king of Assyria found conspiracy in Hoshea, for he had sent messengers to he sent messengers to So king of Egypt, and brought no present to the king of Assyria, as he had done year by year. Therefore the king of Assyria shut him up and bound him in prison.
So after so many periods of time, the king of Assyria doesn't see that Hosea and Israel, they're not giving presents in this one particular year, whereas Hosea had been so humble to do so, but it appeared that, or it was a matter of fact that Hosea and Israel were conspiring with Egypt now to come up and fight against the Assyrian rulership, because again, Assyria hadn't touched into Egypt yet during this point in time. But Shalmaneser kind of caught wind of that, and then he, you know, doing what he did to do, you know, inquiring and finding out, he realized that this conspiracy was going on, and he actually put Hosea in prison. And that was bad news, as we're going to see right now, for the rest of the northern kingdom of Israel. Continue on.
Verse 5, then the king of Assyria came up throughout all the land and went up to Samaria and besieged it 3 years. In the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria and placed them in Halah and in Habor by the river of Gozan and in the cities of the Medes.
So let's stop right there. Let's go to the PowerPoint really quick. So we see now the whole kingdom, due to prophecy, but due to, you know, Hosea filling that prophecy, the whole area and land area of the northern kingdom is now going into this captivity, and we're going to get a visual look at that right now, really quick. Kanash, if you want to switch to the PowerPoint. Give us 2 seconds really quick. We want to show you guys and give you guys the complete visual of what we're dealing with right here. Con. All right, so we see now, I'm going to use the cursor of this mouse to kind of give you the border area. So everything that the clicker is kind of cutting is the border between the northern and the southern kingdom. So all of this, Reuben, Gad, Ephraim, Dan, even though Dan wasn't really there, Manasseh, Issachar, Zebulun, Asher, everyone you know, all of this now is being, you know, compacted and collided in and taken over by Shalmaneser, king of Assyria. Let me get you a better picture too. So Assyria first began in this little area here, and as they conquest and got bigger and bigger in the process of time throughout 1st and 2nd Kings, they, at this point in time, had this much area. So all this now is what was the northern kingdom of Israel, and then what's left of Judea and the Jews, and Assyria's takeover. So now the northern kingdom is officially Syrian territory, and we can get some more details too with this map. The purple areas lines right here is when we first read when Tilgath-Pilneser first came into the northern kingdom of Israel and only took a little chunk, you know, the cities close to Naphtali, and carried them, as it was said, to Hazor. Yeah, Hazor and Habor. And as we're going to see right now, the other places that they were carried to too. So this is the first captivity, or what do we say, deportation of the northern kingdom. And the next one, these orangish red areas, is pretty much the next. From Samaria and onward, the rest of the northern kingdom of Israel taken into Assyrian captivity, shown by these arrows right here. And then even further, later in the future, we see how Israel even got more eastwards, going towards the cities of the Medes, or the Persians and Medes, this way. So now, let's read verse 6 again to kind of explain this map.
In the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria and placed them in Halah and in Habor by the river of Gozan and in the cities of the Medes.
So we see Gozam is right here. Harbor is actually in this general area over here too. It's not shown on the map, but it was all these cities, Gozam, Harbor, and Halah were all way north and out of the normal territory of Israel. And then we see, Media, the cities of the Medes and such, their kingdom is way over here in the east as well too. So just word checks with you guys. Halah, one of the cities, means painful. Habor means joining. And Gozan means a cutting off. And Medes means the middle land, because Media does happen to be in the middle of all of the eastern hemisphere, as we can see. So we can, you can put the PowerPoint away. You can come back onto us. And we're going to continue with... we're going to continue verse 7 and down and just see just the summarizing of what's been going on.
Verse 7, for so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, which had brought them out of the land of Egypt from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and had feared other gods.
And the reason, continue.
And walked in the statutes of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out from before the children of Israel and of the kings of Israel, which they had made. And the children of Israel did secretly those things that were not right against the Lord their God, and they built them high places in all their cities, from the tower of the watchman to the fenced city.
Let's jump down to verse 13, because we're going to jump into a different mode real quick. Verse 13.
Yet the Lord testified against Israel and against Judah by all the prophets and by all the seers, saying, turn ye from your evil ways, and keep my commandments and my statutes, according to all the law which I commanded your fathers, and which I sent to you by my servants the prophets.
Now check this out. What prophets were there? Now, the Bible that we have doesn't necessarily have every single prophet, because there was many prophets, but the ones that did make it, we can find out through reading and studying these scriptures who those prophets actually were. So one of the first ones that I mentioned earlier, which was Isaiah, who wasn't necessarily supposed to prophesy to the northern kingdom, although his information was tied up in the mix, was Isaiah. But actually, one of the very first prophets to prophesy to the northern kingdom was Amos. So we can get to the book of Amos real quick, and we'll jump around. We'll jump around a little bit. And let me leave a little bookmark right there. Let's start at chapter 3, and I'll tell you where to go. So let's get to the book of Amos real quick. One of these prophets that the Most High said, I've been told y'all, and Judah with my prophets, that you guys are messing up right now, and you all need to change. But knowing the kingdom of Israel, they was not doing that. So Amos chapter 3, and let's get verse 1.
Amos chapter 3 and verse 1. Hear this word that the Lord hath spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying.
Now, this is something you guys need to understand, just dealing with the reading the King James Version Bible, and hopefully any other translation in language. Whenever in prophecy the Most High is saying Israel, he's specifically and more than likely dealing with the northern kingdom. The northern kingdom in prophecy is always referred to as Israel. And the southern kingdom is always referred to as Judah, and eventually comes to be known as the Jews. So that's something you got that needs to be understood and known. You can continue on.
Verse 2, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore, I will punish you for all your iniquities. Verse 3, can two walk together except they be agreed? Will a lion roar in the forest when he hath no prey?
Jump down to verse 12.
Verse 12, thus saith the Lord, as the shepherd taketh out of the mouth of the lion 2 legs, or a piece of an ear, so shall the children of Israel be taken out that dwell in Samaria, in the corner of a bed, and in Damascus in a couch.
So we're going to get some more of this in Amos, but Amos made this prophecy before 722 BC, before the fall of Samaria. Amos was recorded to have prophesied to the northern kingdom around 760 BC. So that was ample time before the event for the possibility of the northern kingdom to repent. But obviously, as we see in history as it goes, prophecy being fulfilled, this did not happen. Let's stay in Amos. Let's go to chapter 4, and let's get verse 9.
Amos chapter 4, verse 9. I've smitten you with blasting and mildew. When your gardens and your vineyards and your fig trees and your olive trees increased, the palm worm devoured them. Yet have ye not returned unto me, saith the Lord.
So this is dealing again specifically with Israel, the northern kingdom. If you remember prior in the book of 1 Kings, when Ahab was reigning, so some couple kings up and back, we've seen that during the time of Ahab, there was a famine in the land. So there was, a lack of food and water and resources and such like that. So the Most High is saying through Amos, I did these things. I'm the one who did these things to you, to get you, to help you to understand and know that you're not doing the right thing. And now I'm telling you by mouth and by word by one of my prophets. Continue, verse 10.
I have sent among you the pestilence after the manner of Egypt. Your young men have I slain with the sword, and have taken away your horses. And I've made the stink of your camps to come up unto your nostrils. Yet have ye not returned unto me, said the Lord.
The many wars that the northern kingdom of Israel had with Syria, Ben-Hadad, Hazael, even the southern kingdom of Judah, were the couple periods of times where Judah, took it upon themselves to go against the northern kingdom. Verse 11.
I have overthrown some of you as God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, and you were as a firebrand plucked out of the burning. Yet have ye not returned unto me, saith the Lord.
Con, let's jump down. Chapter 5, verse 4. Actually, chapter 5, verse 2. Start from verse 2.
The virgin of Israel is fallen. She shall no more arise. She is forsaken upon her land. There is none to raise her up. For thus saith the Lord God, the city that went out by 1,000 shall leave in 100, and that which went forth by 100 shall leave 10 to the house of Israel.
So that's the Most High specifically saying, you guys are going to get removed from the land. Anytime where 1,000 goes down to 10, like it said in this verse, means that people are getting taken out, which we read already in history. Continue.
For thus saith the Lord unto the house of Israel, seek ye me, and ye shall live.
But that did not happen. Continue.
But seek not Bethel, nor enter into Gilgal, and pass not to Beersheba, for Gilgal shall surely go into captivity, and Bethel shall come to naught.
These are these little micro captivities that are happening to give Israel warning, like, look, this is going to happen to the whole nation. I'm taking little by little away, but y'all are still not changing. Continue.
Seek the Lord, and ye shall live, lest he break out like fire in the house of Joseph and devour it, and there be none to quench it in Bethel. Ye whom turn judgment to wormwood, and leave off righteousness in the earth, seek him that maketh the 7 stars and Orion, and turneth the shadow of death into the morning, and maketh the day dark with night.
Con, let's go to chapter 7 and verse 7.
Chapter 7, verse 7. Thus he showed me, and behold, the Lord stood upon a wall made by a plumb line with a plumb line in his hand.
So in case you guys don't know, a plumb line is something that is a measuring tool. It's basically like it's a weight that's held on a string and is used for basically measuring or keeping the balance of buildings that you build high up. Because if you don't build buildings straight, they can go curved, and they'll topple over. So a plumb line is an instrument used to make a building that you build up straight up. So that's what Amos is seeing right now in this similitude that the Most High is showing him. Continue.
And the Lord said unto me, Amos, what seest thou? And I said, a plumb line. Then said the Lord, behold, I will set a plumb line in the midst of my people Israel. I will not again pass by them anymore.
So the Most High is basically saying this. Okay, look, I'm going to set a plumb line amongst my people Israel, the northern kingdom. And he's going to test the balance of it to see if they're correct. And he's going to obviously see this plumb line in comparison to Israel. Israel is crooked. So the Most High is like, look, because they're a crooked building and my plumb line, which is judging, that balance and, which is basically making that judgment, I'm not going to go over there because it's just bad news. So the Most High is like, look, my plumb line, which is my righteous judgment with my law, has judged that this building is not habitable. So I'm not going to go over there. That's what the similitude is about. Continue.
And the high places of Isaac shall be desolate, and the sanctuaries of Israel shall be laid waste, and I will rise against the house of Jeroboam with the sword.
Prophecies against the northern kingdom. Let's see. Let's get to chapter. There's a couple more because Amos is actually one of the biggest ones that prophesied against the northern kingdom of Israel. So just for the sake of getting to some of the other prophets and seeing what they had to say, I'm going to cut it right there. But there are more prophecies against the northern kingdom in chapter 8 and chapter 9 that we're not going to get to tonight. So you guys can read that on your own time. So let's go in a chronological order. Amos being one of the first prophets because let's go back and just touch bases really quick in 2 Kings 17 and 13. Read that real quick again so we can outline what are we doing right now in the Bible.
17 and what?
17 and 13. So what we're doing right now is we're proving what the Bible says precept by precept, and we're jumping book by book to do that.
2 Kings chapter 17, verse 13. Yet the Lord testified against Israel and against Judah by all the prophets and by all the seers, saying, turn ye from your evil ways.
So that's what we're doing right now. We're actually going to see those prophets in this book, the Bible, that did that. Because unfortunately, if you read the Bible from front cover to last cover, it's not necessarily in a straight chronological order. You got to bob and weave and dig your way through it. So we're going to do that a little bit for you guys tonight. So we just got Amos, who prophesied around 760 BC, before 722, the fall. And the next prophet we're going to see is Hosea, who prophesied around 750 BC. So let's go to Hosea chapter 1 and verse 2, and you can read through 9.
Hosea 1, you said 1 through 9?
Verse 2. Okay, through 9.
It's the book Hosea, chapter 1, verse 2. You ready? Yeah. Okay. The beginning of the word of the Lord by Hosea. And the Lord said to Hosea, go take unto thee a wife of whoredoms and children of whoredoms, for the land hath committed great whoredom, departing from the Lord.
So we didn't read it, but Hosea is specifically being sent to the northern kingdom. He was sent to during the times of King Jeroboam. So continue.
So he went and took Gomer, the daughter of Diblaim, which conceived and bare him a son. And the Lord said unto him, call his name Jezreel, for yet a little while, and I will avenge the blood of Jezreel upon the house of Jehu, and will cause to seize the kingdom of house of Israel.
So bam, another prophetic event through a sign that Hosea had to do by marrying this whore, which is representative of the northern kingdom, and one of the sons, his name means that for yet a little while. So obviously, the northern kingdom in 750 BC, Hosea's prophecy time reign has not happened yet. Continue.
And it shall come to pass at that day that I will break the bow of Israel in the valley of Jezreel.
Captivity.
Con. And she conceived again and bare a daughter. And God said unto him, call her name Lorahama, for I will no more have mercy upon the house of Israel, but I will utterly take them away.
And as we see, even during the times of Ahab, Ahab himself had mercy by the Most High Yahweh. But after so many kings and so many things going on, the Most High said, look, Hosea, name this next son. I'm not going to have any more mercy on you, Israel. Continue.
But I will have mercy upon the house of Judah and will save them by the Lord their God, and will not save them by bow, nor by sword, nor by battle, by horses, nor by horsemen. Now when she had weaned Laruhama, she conceived and bare a son. Then said God, call his name Laami, for ye are not my people, and I will not be your God.
And that's the third kid that Hosea has with this whore that the Most High said to take, and as a representation of all the strikes and points that the Most High had against Israel, the northern kingdom. And the final point being, I am no longer your God. And we see that mentioned in other prophets all throughout. But this is one of the very first instances where the Most High is mentioned through his prophet that Israel is no longer my people. I believe one of the most famous ones is I just got a blank in mind too. But it's a scripture that's quoted about the northern kingdom a lot, about they're not my people. But this is actually one of the first ones, time-wise and chronologically. So that was verse 9, yes? Okay. So yeah, that's Hosea, still prophesying against the northern kingdom before the fall. The next prophet that's still prophesying against the northern kingdom, we had Amos, Hosea. We even got next Micah. So Micah is prophesying to the northern kingdom by 735 BC, still about 15 years before the fall of Samaria completely. So we can get Micah chapter 1 and verse 1 through 9. If you got it, you got it.
It's the book of Micah chapter 1, verse, you said 1 through 9? Yeah. Verse 1. The word of the Lord that came to Micah, the Morastite, in the days of Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, king of Judah, which he saw concerning Samaria and Jerusalem. Hear all ye people, hearken, O earth, and all that therein is, and let the Lord God be witness against you, the Lord from his holy temple. For behold, the Lord cometh forth out of his place, and will come down, and tread upon the high places of the earth. And the mountains shall be molten under him, and the valley shall be cleft as wax before the fire, and as the waters that are poured down a steep place.
So all these details that the Most High is, scaring, not necessarily Micah, but that Micah is going to use to hopefully scare the northern kingdom about the desolation of the complete land. If the land is desolate, how can the people live on it? Continue.
And the mountains shall be molten under him, and the valley shall be cleft as wax before the fire, and as the waters that are poured down a steep place. For the transgression of Jacob is all this, and for the sins of the house of Israel. What is the transgression of Jacob? Is it not Samaria? And what are the high places of Judah? Are they not Jerusalem?
So Micah actually touched on 2 points. Samaria being the worst of it all, but then Judah also as well too. If you've seen our previous lessons, Judah, one of their main biggest sticking sin was that they went and worshiped the Most High or whomever on the high places. That's a direct violation in the law. We're not supposed to worship anywhere we want. We're supposed to worship at the temple of the Most High, the northern kingdom included. But, they have been off from that point. Continue.
Verse 6. Therefore I will make Samaria as a heap of the field and as plantings of a vineyard, and I will pour down the stones thereof into the valley, and I will discover the foundations thereof. And all the graven images thereof shall be beaten to pieces, and all the hires thereof shall be burned with the fire, and all the idols thereof I will lay desolate. For she gathered it of the hire of an harlot, and they shall return to the hire of an harlot.
So describing the many various sins of the northern kingdom. Continue.
Therefore I will wail and howl, I will go stripped and naked, I will make a wailing like the dragons and mourning as the owls. For her wound is incurable. For it is come unto Judah, he is come unto the gate of my people, even to Jerusalem.
So Micah is basically getting word from the Most High, saying in this last verse that the sin of Samaria is so bad that it's even tainting Judah, the southern kingdom. That's how bad it is. And we see that as proof. There were a couple of different kings. It was about 2 or 3 that actually went in league with the northern kingdom, the kings of Israel. I can't remember the names now, but I know for sure it was one that went with Ahab, another with a couple other kings. But that's how bad and I guess how seducing that the wickedness of the northern kingdom was, that it was beginning to affect, the Most High's pride and crown of glory, the southern kingdom or Judah. It had that much of a bad effect. Right. So yeah, that was Micah's prophecy against the northern kingdom. 3 prophets so far that we have within this Bible prophesying against northern kingdom destruction. And this next prophet actually is going to deal more so after the fact of the matter. So the prophets Amos, Hosea, and Micah are dealing with prophecy in itself. This is going to happen, which did happen. That's what those 3 prophets did. This next prophet, Nahum, we're going to get actually deals with after the matter. So after the fall of Samaria, we still see that prophets are still being sent to those little remnants that might be left, but are they going to switch up? Are they going to change? We're going to see with here. So we can get to the book of Nahum, chapter 1 and verse 15.
The book of Nahum, chapter 1, verse 15. Behold upon the mountains the feet of him that bringeth good tidings, that publisheth peace. O Judah, keep thy solemn feasts, perform thy vows. For the wicked shall no more pass through thee, he is utterly cut off.
Continue down, chapter 2.
He that dasheth in pieces is come up before thy face. Keep the munition. What is that? Munition. Watch the way, make thy lion strong, fortify thy power mightily. For the Lord hath turned away the excellency of Jacob as the excellency of Israel. For the emptiers have emptied them out and marred their vine branches.
Marred their vine branches. So this is an example of Nahum. Nahum basically at this point in time, if we want to go to let's go to the map real quick on the laptop for like 2 seconds. I'm going to show where we're at. Nahum is prophesying right here in Nineveh, as well as Jonah does this a little bit earlier in the history as well too. But this is where Nahum is prophesying with captives, captives both of the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom there too. So you can put the PowerPoint back on us. So Nahum is getting the comparison. It's like, look, he said, look, the excellency of Israel, for the Lord hath turned away the excellency of Jacob, both degrees of both kingdoms as the excellency of Israel. That's a direct reference again with the northern kingdom. The northern kingdom is always referred to in the prophets as Israel. For the emptiers, which is the other nations, Assyria being one of the main ones, have emptied them out and marred their vine branches. So a lot of the prophecies give similitudes to the common things that we were doing, like tilling the land. When you want to get berries from your tree, you're taking all those berries off so you can, make wine and such like that later. That's how the Most High is saying that's what happened to Israel. All the people, like berries on a fir tree, got taken off of it and removed. And we see that the northern kingdom is desolate from Israelites that should have been there. And so that's Nahum saying that in 625 BC. And the last prophet we're going to bring out touching upon the northern kingdom is Ezekiel. Ezekiel 23, and you can start from verse 4. So at this time, Ezekiel made this prophecy well after the northern kingdom was fallen, around 593 to 571 BC. So Ezekiel is giving in his prophecy a recollection of what's already happened. So Ezekiel 23, 4 through 10.
It's the book of Ezekiel chapter 23 and verse 4. And the names of them were Aholah, the elder, and Aholabah, her sister, and they were mine, and they bare sons and daughters. Thus were their names. Samaria is Aholah, and Jerusalem, Aholibah. And Aholah played the harlot when she was mine, and she doted on her lovers, on the Assyrians, her neighbors, which were clothed with blue, captains and rulers, all of them desirable, young men, horsemen, riding upon horses. Thus she committed her whoredoms with them, with all them that were the chosen men of Assyria, and with all on whom she doted. With all their idols she defiled herself. Neither left she her whoredoms brought from Egypt, for in her youth they lay with her, and they bruised the breasts of her virginity, and poured their whoredom upon her.
Now emphasize verse 9 really good.
Wherefore I have delivered her into the hand of her lovers, into the hand of the Assyrians, upon whom she doted.
And that's talking about Israel once again. So this is a reflection of what's already came to pass. This whole prophecy, not to dig too much into it, but Ezekiel is told to give a similitude of two daughters of the Most High, Aholah and Aholibah. Aholah being Samaria, or the northern kingdom. Aholibah, you guys can read that sometime on another time, but again, this lesson is about the northern kingdom of Israel primarily. So that was one of the last prophecies. As far as details, we can probably pick out and choose more if we wanted to later. But just to give you guys a general gist of navigating through this Bible, the prophets of the Bible deal with these times in the first and second Kings. So you can find them there. And we pulled out a good, decent chunk amount for you. So let's get back into the past and the linear aspect of that real quick. So after pretty much now, Hosea is put in prison. The Assyrians have completely taken over the northern kingdom and somewhat of Judah a little bit too. The Assyrians have a particular tactic that they use, that you can find in history, in their history. They remove people, the original people, and then put people in. So let's get to 2 Kings chapter 17 and verse 23, and read down.
2 Kings chapter 17 and verse 23. Until the Lord remove Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants the prophets, so was Israel carried away out of their own land to Assyria unto this day. And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon and from Cutha, and from Avah, and from Hamath, and from Sepharvaim, and placed them into the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. And so it was at the beginning of their dwelling there that they feared not the Lord. Therefore the Lord sent lions among them, which slew some of them.
So without going too much into that detail, so we see this is the tactic that Assyria uses. Assyria is putting other people in the kingdoms that Assyria has taken over now into all of Samaria, all into the northern kingdom. So the issue tidbit with that was they didn't know that that land was so special to the Most High that, you know, even them themselves and their wickedness not being Israelites, the land would begin to rebel against them. So the Assyrians, they inquired one of the priests of Israel at that time, and they taught them a little bit of the ways of, okay, this is how you actually need to be operating if you're going to have the heathen staying in this land. So they did so much, the heathen, they did so much to appease the Most High, which is fearing him, but, you know, they still kept the worshiping of their gods and their idols. So they acknowledged the Most High, and that's why the Most High wasn't going to completely remove them from the land, because they weren't doing what they were not completely supposed to do, but they still worship, you know, in secret in their houses, you know, their gods. But they feared the Lord, you know, as the scripture said. And we're not going to get that. But the heathen did fear the Lord within our own land. Now, matter of fact, let's just get chapter 17, verse 41.
Chapter 17, verse 41. So these nations feared the Lord and served their graven images, both their children and their children's children. As did their fathers, so did they unto this day.
Just what I said right now. So as far as scripturally concerned, we're going to turn over now to, some more PowerPoints or some more images. One of the last ones I want to show you guys right here. So we love to prove the Bible outside of the Bible. And some of us maybe more than others. But now we're going to get actual pieces of archaeology from the Assyrians themselves. The Assyrians, a completely different nation, different nation that was against the Israelites. For your so-called people that say the Bible is a fabrication, a storytell book. Well, I mean, we pulled out a whole bunch of geographic sources and world history and timelines. So what do you guys got to say about this? So here are some Assyrian artifacts that we're going to cover over and read into. Right here, and I'll read them right now, Yatazar, because the computer's over here. But this is one of the first one right here. So this is a relief. It's called Lachish Captives, and I'm going to read the brief to you. So it says, the Assyrians besieged it 3 years. We read that in 2 Kings 17:5, talking about the northern kingdom. Before its resistance was finally broken. Samaria fell in 722 BC, and this relief is from Nineveh, depicting the Assyrians taking a city. It shows the inhabitants being driven off into exile while the battle for the city is still in its last stages. A similar fate befell the people of Samaria. So actually, you know, when you read into it, the Lachish people were supposed to be Judeans. So this is actually, these are descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but this is actually when the Assyrians had taken over a little bit of the kingdom of Judah. But these are the Assyrians right here, and these are our Judeans right here, these three men right here. But now, one of the main biggest ones, so this is called in Assyrian bas reliefs, the Lachish captives. And now this one right here, if you guys can see, this is it's a two-part. It's up here and the bottom right here. The bottom is the king of Assyria, and the top is captives and an Assyrian military general or army person. So I'm gonna scroll down and you get a bigger picture right here, and I'm gonna read this. And it says, accompanied by their sheep, these people right here, and these are sheep up here, And with their belongings, these bags right here that we see on these men's back, slung over their shoulders, captives are being driven out of Ashtaroth, a town to the east of the Lake of Galilee. So this is all within Israelite territory. By Assyrian warriors. This guy right here. This is the Assyrian warrior. You see his sword right here. You know, you see his dress is a little bit different than these three men right here. He's a different nation of person. By Assyrian warriors. This relief of the capture of Astartu, which is Astaroth. Astartu basically is the Assyrian translation of Astaroth, and Astaroth is a city within the northern kingdom of Israel. And the king in his chariot, this is back up here, this image right here. This is the king in his chariot. The king in his chariot, and this dates to 730 to 727 BC. So we can exactly pinpoint when this date was. This captivity of the northern kingdom was that very first captivity that we read with Tilgath-Pileser, which was the beginning when he only took Naphtali and some of the other cities around. So that's where this piece comes from. And then obviously we know later in history, 10 years later, the rest of the captivity of Israel happens. So this is that first chunk of the captivity of the northern kingdom of Israel. So this bas relief dates to 730 to 727 BC. It was excavated, so now we're getting actual facts. This bas relief was excavated from Nimrod at the southwest palace of Tilgath-Pileser III, the same king during that time. Tilgath-Pileser III is named Pul in the Bible and is mentioned in 2 Kings 15 and 19. So this piece of archaeology was taken up in the city of Nimrod, which is in archaeology remains the city of the Assyrians. So this is something they had carved out and drawn out, in their kingdom to basically signify a historical event in their kingdom, which was a historical event in our kingdom, but to our loss. Let me read this right here. The Ashtaroth of the Bible is situated like Samaria on top of a hill and surrounded by a double wall with prominent towers. Both the walls and the towers are crenellated. Gypsonian relief from Nimrod, Timon Pil-Glesner. Yep, we just basically explained that. So coming down, I'm going to read you guys this too. Part of how we get the understanding of the timelines of all the prophets and the timelines of the fall of Samaria is through secondary sources as well too. So right here on this website, which is called ancientreplicas.com, under the subheader of Lachish captives, you can actually show they give you, not this one right here, it's right here, primary sources of Assyrian history. So some of the primary sources that historians and archaeologists use to verify the Bible dealing with Assyrian history is a couple of these things. The Assyrian Annals, the Assyrian Chronicles and Penium Canon, the Assyrian King List, the Assyrian Sculptures, which is what we just saw, the pictures above, and of course the Bible. So these are sources that anybody that wants to disprove the Bible and such that we have, you can go check these sources right here. Four of these primary sources: the sculptures themselves, the king list of the Assyrians, the chronicles of the Assyrians, and the various different annals of the Assyrians, where their accounts, what they did to Israel and other nations, have been recorded. So it's not just a biased view where the Bible is talking about, us, which is what the Bible is about, us Israelites, but also world history verifies the same thing as well too, with Assyrian historical history. Right, so you could take that off of the PowerPoint, you could go back onto us, because now, summing up, that's pretty much the lesson that we have here, for the fall of Samaria, the fall of the northern kingdom. 19 kings. There were 19 kings total within the whole northern kingdom. Of those 19 kings, there were 10 family lines. Because remember, a lot of these kings got what are they called? What is that called when you sedition? Sedition was a big thing in the Northern Kingdom. Families got put out, houses got put out, so that new kings got established. So within those 19 kings, there were 10 family lines. And just for information to you know, the reason why the Northern Kingdom is referred to as Israel or Ephraim is because it's understood that Ephraim was the tribe that held the seat of power of kingship within the Northern Kingdom. The only other tribe of Israel that's mentioned that was not Ephraim was Issachar, and that was the house of Baasha that lasted for 2 generations. Other than that, it's generally understood that Ephraim held the title of kingship within the Northern Kingdom. So you have Ephraim and Issachar that held the throne within the Northern Kingdom of Israel. So the fall of Samaria, 722 BC, and leading into a lot of the events that deal with the New Testament and go not into the land of the Samaritans deal with this history right here that we explained tonight. So I hope that it was good for you guys. I hope that it was thorough, but I hope that it was clear for everybody that stayed here to from beginning to end for you guys this lesson, because it's important to understand everything that goes along with this: archaeology, geography, Bible history, and all the prophets. So with that, we're going to call this Wednesday night history lesson a wrap. I taught with you Ahman Allah. To my left, my reader here.
Yatzazar, yeah.
And we're out of here. Shalom.
Shalom.